Kerry called me, asked me if I wanted to fill in for him while he was gone. And I said, is this the pastor that assigns topics to the people who he asks to fill in? Yeah, it is. Okay, well, what's my topic? Dying well. My response to that was, you realize it's Mother's Day, right? Dying well on Mother's Day. I don't want no part of that at all. I also said, you do realize my mother goes to your church. You ever preached a Mother's Day sermon to your mother? You can kind of hear, oh, now you're going to tell me how to be a mother. My wonderful mother, Mary Jane, goes to church here. But here I am. So what I would like to do is preach for a little bit about living well to die well, and then I would also like to just take a few moments to affirm all the mothers that we have in church today, and just encourage you where you're at right now as a mother. Dying well on Mother's Day. I don't want to get too involved with the irresponsibility of your pastor, but I guess here I am. It does remind me, though, of a young pastor who prepared his Mother's Day sermon and got up on Mother's Day ready to go. And instead of telling his congregation to turn to 2 Timothy chapter 1, where he was going to preach about Timothy and Timothy's mother Lois and Timothy's grandmother Eunice, both women of faith, and how they passed that faith down to this young man of God, Timothy, he was going to preach that sermon, but instead he told them to turn to 1 Timothy 1, where you can read about sinners, perverts, slave traders, and murderers of mothers, if you could believe that. Now, it wasn't me who did that, but... You know this guy David from the Old Testament? That's what you've been reading about this last week. He's a good guy, isn't he? Man after God's own heart, that's what the Bible says about him. I like that description, don't you? I think I could get to like that guy. I'm not finding too many guys out there with that description these days, are you? A man after God's own heart. Here's what David did. Won his battles, overcame his arch nemesis Saul, who was trying to kill him every day. Now he's sitting on the throne, king of Israel. His armies are going out. Victories on the battlefield. He's wealthy. He has a palace, large family. Everything's going pretty well. And here he sits and he says, is there anyone still alive in the house of Saul, my enemy, that I can show favor to? That's nuts, isn't it? Who's doing that these days? Godly men are. Then he says, later on, here I sit in a palace of cedar, and the ark of God, God's presence, is just sitting under a tent. I'm going to build a house for God. So David prays about that. He goes and sees the prophet Nathan. Nathan says, good, go for it. But Nathan also comes back with a message that says this, David, great, you said to God, I want to build a house for you. Here is God's response. I like David. Don't you like him? Building a house for God, wanting to do something for God so that the rest of Israel can honor and praise God. This is a real leader, a godly leader. This is who we need as president. And Israel was lucky. In David's day and his son Solomon's day, Israel was the empire of the world. Not quite as big as some of the other empires, but David was the man of the world at the time. And what's he do? I got to build a house for God. He's not thinking about himself. He's thinking about God. But God comes back with this message. David, you said you wanted to build a house for me. Actually, David, I'm going to build a house for you. If you'll be faithful to me, if your sons and your descendants are faithful to me, I will see to it, David, that someone from your house will always be on the throne. for eternity, and that's what we have in Christ, a descendant of David on the throne. So as good as David was, God one-upped him. That's how good God is. And here's what David said. This is what it says, 1 Kings. At the time of King David's death approached, he gave this charge to his son Solomon. I'm going where everyone on earth must someday go. Take courage and be a man. Observe the requirements of the Lord your God and follow all His ways. Keep the decrees, commands, regulations, and laws written in the law of Moses, so that you will be successful in all you do and wherever you go. If you do this, then the Lord will keep the promise He made to me. He told me, if your descendants live as they should and follow me faithfully with all their heart and soul, one of them will always sit on the throne of Israel. So that's David leaving a legacy for his son, hoping he will do the same. Now, next verses, 1 Chronicles 29, this is where we get to see in David's heart. This is the day of celebration for that new temple. Oh, our God, we thank you and praise your glorious name. But who am I, and who are my people, that we could give anything to you? Everything we have has come from you, and we give you only what you first gave us. We are here for only a moment, visitors and strangers in the land as our ancestors were before us. Our days on earth are like a passing shadow, gone so soon without a trace. O Lord our God, even this material we've gathered to build a temple to honor your holy name comes from you. It all belongs to you. I know, my God, that you examine our hearts and rejoice when you find integrity there. Listen to David's heart. You know I have done all this with good motives, and I have watched your people offer their gifts willingly and joyously. O Lord, the God of our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, make your people always want to obey you. See to it that their love for you never changes. Give my son Solomon the wholehearted desire to obey all your commands, laws, and decrees, and to do everything necessary to build this temple for which I have made these preparations. Then David said to the whole assembly, give praise to the Lord your God, and the entire assembly praised the Lord, the God of their ancestors. They bowed low and knelt before the Lord and the King. It's a great day in the history of our world right there when they built that temple. It was also a great day for David, and here's what I want to point out to you. It allowed David to die well. He was a happy man because the only thing he wanted was to glorify God and have his entire nation do the same. David lived well, and we go back and read about his life, a couple of chinks in the armor, I know, but David lived well so that here now he reaps the benefits of all of that, God's blessing, and then he was able to die well. For you, Mom, you're not leading a nation, but you've got your own little tribe, don't you? Lead them well. And on the day that they give praise to God because of the way you lived, then you too, Mom, if I can say this, will be able to have joy, and that joy will allow you to die well. Can we put a reframe on death today? Can we say about death, it is well with my soul? This morning, having just heard that for the first time, that's probably for many of you too big of a jump right now. That's okay. Death is the worst thing in the universe. Reframing it as a positive is the hardest work in the universe. Thank heavens we have someone who went to the cross, came back to life 3 days later, conquered death, so that you and I can then say, where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? Can you say that? The only way to be able to say that is if we live well. Then that allows us with joy to be able to die well. How do we do that? How do we live well? We live a life like David that simply wants to honor God. Let's look at Luke 12. Someone from the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or arbiter between you?" And then he said to them, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life doesn't consist in the abundance of possessions. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store all my crops. And then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns. I'll build bigger ones. And there I'll store all my surplus grain. And I will say to myself, I have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, be merry, relax. But God said to him, you fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you've prepared for yourself? And that's how it'll be for whoever stores up things for themselves but is not rich towards God. So this man in the parable prepares for everything that is life, but doesn't prepare for death. He prepares for all the abstract things of life that could happen, but you don't know that are going to happen. But he doesn't prepare for the one constant. We could illustrate it this way. Let's say we have a man today who has just died. He started his own business. He became very wealthy through that business. But yet he dies. He's got all of his stock portfolio put together. He's insured himself to the gills. He is lawyered up. He has taken care of all of the contingencies. Everything prepared for that could possibly happen. But he's died. And so that day, all of his employees, family, gather in the cemetery around his headstone, pay their regards. Service is over, everybody leaves, goes back home. On that headstone is written father, husband, although he really wasn't very good at either of those, CEO, entrepreneur, leader. But after everybody leaves, God comes down from heaven at night. He enters into that cemetery. He walks up to that headstone. He stretches out his arm, points his finger, and he writes his own word on that headstone. Fool. How can you prepare for all of the contingencies of this abstract life, stuff that you don't even know is going to happen? Prepare for days that you don't even know you have, but yet not prepare for the one day that you know is coming? That is foolish. Let's call it what it is. That's childish. Why would we do that? Why would we not spend our days on this earth living well for God, preparing for the one day we know coming, so that we can then die well? That's the way to do it. All right, I promised moms. Let's go. Ready? Moms, how do you live well so that then, full of joy, you can die well? It's still just not sitting right with me. Well, we're going to give it a try. Interesting verse number 1 today. 1 Timothy 2. Women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety. Mom, if you can marry childbearing with a strong, living faith in God, you're good to go. Have you ever thought about that? The task is large, but God's designed you for it. If you carry out the task while practicing a genuine faith, then you will qualify for all the awards and rewards of not only being a mother, but of heaven as well. And you'll be the mother that you always wanted to be. Interesting verse number 2. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw that he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. You can go read that same story over in the book of Exodus in the Old Testament, And really we see there that it was his mother that did all the hard work. She's the one that made the basket. She's the one that went through all the agony of that. A good mother, a great mother. And you see in that story in Exodus that her faith in God and not fearing the king, coupled with her devotion to her child, made her one of the best mothers the world's ever known. I haven't even mentioned all the accomplishments of her son that she saved. I want to comfort you today, moms, hopefully, by telling you that by being a godly mother and having a godly faith makes you precious in God's sight. Often, moms, we feel like I need to be doing more for God. There's other things that I should be doing. A godly mother with godly faith biblically qualifies you as a woman of God. I hope that comforts you. You need not question your effectiveness as a mother. You don't need to struggle with insecurity. God has promised that the mother of faith is of great value, and He promises her eternity with Him. Now, being a mom is a huge blessing. It's also a huge task. And folks that are smarter than me, my wife included, say that the biggest thing that a mom does struggle with is that gap between the expectations of a mom and the mom that I really am in reality. And we can go read in Proverbs 31 about the noble wife and the noble mother, and that sometimes really doesn't help us all at all because she has no gaps. She's a perfect woman. Proverbs 31, written by a man, of course, right? I used to teach a batter's education class. These were men who were court-ordered to come to this class because they had become violent with their wives or their significant others. One of the things that we would stress in that class was emotional abuse. And one of the things that we spent time talking about as far as emotional abuse is concerned is this thing where these men would go right to denigrating their significant others about their parenting or their mother skills. Why would they do that? Well, it works. Certain men wanting to control reach for that poor mother card because it works. Why does it work? Because just about every mother has questions and insecurities about how good of a mother that she really is. Why? Why that insecurity? Is it because God hasn't gifted or designed you with the worthy of the task? In probably the greatest phenomenon in the universe, a mother can conceive, house, deliver, and nurse a brand new baby. Stop and think. That right there causes the evolutionist to wake up in the middle of the night with shakes. A veritable creation minefield that he has to get through to hold to his theory. You thought about it. I know you've thought about it. Sometimes, Mom, that's all you talk about. But isn't it great? It's worthy to be talked about. It's incredible. So you and I could say, is a woman designed for the task? Very much so, uniquely. What about all the unique qualities that a mother comes by almost naturally? Compassion, patience, tenderness, love, and almost an unexhaustible energy to nurture that brand new child or her child. Special qualities that a mother has that we all recognize. Unique qualities, so much so that God even uses those same qualities to illustrate how compassionate and full of love He is. He uses a mother to illustrate Himself. Because you and I, male or female, see how unique a mother truly is in the way she's been designed and the gifts and the abilities that she has. So, Mom, are you designed for the task? Very much so. You can do it. You can do it. None of us would argue how special a mother is, uniquely created by God for the task of being a mother. Now, gentlemen, a Christian home makes sure that mom has a healthy emotional environment for her to be able to nurture the rest of the family. Both mom and dad are and need to be aware of what mom's limitations may be. If you don't know that, sir, James 1:5 says, if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it'll be given to him. Ask God, help me help her. Little Jerry Maguire line there, right? Sir, that's what you need to do, because you know this as well. The enemy finds and fights us where we are weak. And moms can get overwhelmed with the task from time to time. So guys, you need to promote and encourage mom's day off once in a while, so she'll be able to be a better mom. Together, you can learn how important mommy time is and how important it is to simplify and distress things. That's part of your job as well, sir. Let me show you this picture of my little beautiful Elizabeth. It's a few years old, but look at that smile, those pigtails, those little curls. A daddy's delight, right? Now, I want you to focus in on those curls a little bit. And as you do so, think brush. But don't think too long, you might have nightmares. It was tough. It was horrible some days. I regret some of those days. Why was it so tough? Because Daddy wanted her little girl to have long hair. And so many times, so many mornings. If you skip a morning, it's doubly worse, right? So many times we missed out on positive experiences because I just needed to get over that. I needed to help the mother of my children out. So many days went without the positive regard, the nurturing touch, the focused attention on that child because we were struggling with a brush. It need not be. It need not be. All right, moms, soon you're going to forget me and forget everything that I've said today, but there's one thing I want you to take with you today. One thing that will help you overcome that overwhelmed feeling. One thing that will help you hopefully bring joy to you as a mother as you see the positive benefits that it gives your sons, your daughters. One thing, remember. Write this one down. Here it is. Family dinners. You got to do it. It's where it's at. Dad, you got to help. This is where it's at. You get everybody sat around the table at night like they used to do it when things were better, don't you agree? You get everybody sat around for a half hour to eat a night, and the communication is going to improve in your house with your children. Big deal. You probably already knew that, right? But you know what? Communication is not what's happening today anymore. So, that's a real abstract bunch of psychobabble on how to rearrange that and correct that, right? No, it's not. Family dinner. Simple as that. Family dinner, and it'll work. Now, family dinners are great. They not only improve the communication, but they also improve school performance. A couple of research studies empirically proven how positive the family dinner is. 1994 survey of 2,000 high school seniors. Take an academic test and answer a list of personal questions. The researchers found that, quote, students who regularly ate dinner with their families 4 or more times a week scored better than those who ate family dinners 3 or fewer times a week. Listen to this. These results crossed racial lines, and they were a greater indicator than whether the child was in a 1 or a 2-parent family. Family dinners. Got it? All right, how about Oprah Winfrey? Family theologian, Oprah Winfrey. She did her family dinner experiment. She challenged 5 families to eat together every night for a month for at least a half hour. At first, the families found it difficult, but by the end of the study, they wanted to continue eating dinner together. The biggest surprise for the parents was, quote, how much their children treasured the dependable time with their parents at the table. If Oprah says it, right? A Harvard study, 65 children over 8 years, they found that family dinners were the activity that most fostered healthy child development. The study found that, quote, the teens who were best adjusted ate a meal with an adult in their family on average of 5.4 days a week, compared to 3.3 days for teens who didn't show good adjustment. The well-adjusted teens were, quote, less likely to do drugs or be depressed and were more motivated at school and had better relationships. The meal times were a sort of marker for other positive family attributes and seemed to play an important role in helping teens cope with the stresses of adolescence. So moms, being a mother has so many variables and elements. This is how you can narrow it all down. Focus in. You can take what little energy you might have today, and maybe that's very little. Maybe you are overwhelmed. Take what little energy you have and put it into the family dinner, and then you can begin to see rewards from that, and that will nurse you back to emotional and physical energy to be the mom that you really want to be. Family dinners. If you need to start everything over with your kids, do it with the family dinner. That's where it's at. That's where it can happen. You take that one with you today. It'll work. Stick with it. Bring God in. Prayer of blessing with that meal. You'll have your communication. Your kids will begin to show the positive benefits of just that half hour you spend with them, 5.4 days a week. Let's go to Proverbs 31 for just 1 second. You see this lady? She's clothed with strength and dignity. She has strength. She is not stressed out. She's not overwhelmed. She's not burnt out. She can laugh at the days to come. She watches over the affairs of her household. She doesn't eat the bread of idleness. She's not burnt out at all. She's plenty of energy for the task. Her children arise, they call her blessed. Her husband, same thing. He praises her. Now, that right there, food for a mother's soul. Praise from your children and an acknowledgement of how good of a mother you are. That's your lifeblood, isn't it, Mom? That's every mother's dream. Positives from her children. And Mom, if you're unable to laugh, if your spirit doesn't lend to you laughing, just ask God to help you with that, help figure that out. In the end, Mom, your strength is your joy. And your joy, Mom, is intricately tied to what happens in the lives of your children. Start with the family dinner. If I had to live my life over, by Irma Bombeck, I would have talked less and listened more. I would have invited friends over to dinner even if the carpet was stained and the sofa faded. I would have taken the time to listen to my grandfather ramble about his youth. I would never have insisted the car windows be rolled up on a summer day because my hair had just been teased and sprayed. I would have sat on the lawn with my children and not worried about grass stains. I would have cried and laughed less while watching TV and more while watching Life. Instead of wishing away 9 months of pregnancy, I'd have cherished every moment and realized that the wonderment growing inside me was the only chance in life to assist God in a miracle. When my kids kissed me impetuously, I would never have said, "Later, now go get washed up for dinner." There would have been more "I love yous," more "I'm sorries." But mostly, given another shot at life, I would have seized every minute, look at it and really see it, live it, and absolutely never give it back. That's living well. Living well to be a joyous person so that then I can die well. I want to close today with Psalm 39. Lord, remind me how brief my time on earth will be. Remind me that my days are numbered, how fleeting my life is. You've made my life no longer than the width of my hand. My entire lifetime is just a moment to you. At best, each of us is but a breath. We are merely moving shadows, and all our busy rushing ends in nothing. We heap up wealth, not knowing who will spend it. And so, Lord, in all of that, where do I put my hope? My hope is in you. My only hope is in you. We're going to sing a song. I want you moms just to think about this song as we sing it. It's about blessing God on the days when things go well, and even on the days where things aren't going very well. Blessing God through all of that, like David. Blessing God, living a life of faith towards God, living a life that honors God, so that someday, after you have gathered your family around that family dinner table 5.4 times a week, you will be able to then dine with God at God's table. And you see, He's dying and has already died to get you around that table. So moms, live well so that you can die well. Gentlemen, live every moment well so that with joy you can dine well. Because I would like to dine with you at that table in heaven where there will be no more trials, no more tribulations, no more heartache, no more struggles, no more tears, just feasting with family.